On October 4, 2011, some construction workers in the Elmhurst neighborhood of Queens, New York, were cleaning up a vacant lot. The person driving the excavator hit something solid all of a sudden. It sounds like iron, probably a pipe, but when the driver raises the arm of his machine, this boring Tuesday becomes a morbidly memorable day. Hello everyone. In this video, we will talk about the new discovery, which is a 160-year-old coffin found under New York. Subscribe to Unexplained History now and press the bell icon so you never miss any updates. Let's get started. One thing that Newtown gave to America was the Newtownian apple. An Englishman named Gershom Moore owned the land, where Pippin grew from a random seedling. The apple was very popular at the time, but now only a small amount is grown. In the 1680s, Newtown became the town seat for Queens County. It had its own town hall, tax office, and jail. In 1854, when a horse car line opened, the town started to grow more quickly. In 1876, when the Long Island Railroad opened a line through the town, it grew even more. Let's go back to 2011 and those poor construction workers in Elmhurst. They had just found a dead body, wearing a white shirt and knee-high socks. The body was in such good shape that the man thought they had found a murder victim. So they called the police. Scott Warren Ashe, who was a forensic archaeologist at the time and worked at the New York City office of the chief medical examiner, remembered what had been found on that October day. It was listed as the scene of a crime. A dead body buried on an empty lot. Seems like an easy case to solve. Even though the body was very well preserved, the person hadn't died in the last few years. This was the body of Simeon, who had been buried more than 150 years ago. On the other hand, African slaves were brought to North America for the first time in New York. In 1626, 11 slaves were brought to the Dutch colony, which was then called New Amsterdam. In the 1650s, the first slave auction took place. After the British took over the area and changed its name to New York, they brought even more slaves to the colony. By the early 1800s, there were more slaves in the colony than ever before. In Queens, Newtown, African Americans who had been slaves built a thriving town with its own church. The St. Mark African Methodist Episcopal Church stood on its original site until 1928, when the land was sold and the church was taken down. At this time, Corona Avenue was made wider, and both this street and 90th Street saw a lot of growth. The church still exists, but it is now on Northern Boulevard in Jackson Heights. Queen was buried there, but the place where she was buried was left alone. When construction workers cleaned it up in 2011, it was still an empty lot. In 1849, people first saw these coffins at the American Institute exhibition in New York and the State Agricultural Society Fair in Syracuse. At a time when standard pine caskets could be bought for only $2 each, the rich loved the iron caskets. This was because of two things. The first was that once a body was in an iron coffin, it was effectively sealed. This meant that if necessary, the body could be moved by ship or train over long distances. The second reason was a little bit more dangerous. People thought these iron coffins would keep grave robbers away. But Fisk, who made iron stoves and boilers, had his own reasons for coming up with the idea. Fisk's religious father was very upset about this, so Fisk used what he knew about metalwork to come up with a solution. Fisk died in 1850 when he was just 32 years old. William Meade Raymond, who was his brother-in-law, took over the business. The iron coffins were made to look like a person's body, and each one had a glass panel that showed the face of the person who had died. The body found in Elmhurst was in such good condition because it had been buried in one of Fisk's iron coffins. But when Ashe realized that the body was that of a young woman, the story took a dark turn. Marvin Nash made it clear that he knew what had killed the woman. She had spots on her body that were a sure sign that she had smallpox. An autopsy on her body showed that the disease had spread to her brain. just as Marvin Nash had predicted. This was probably also why she died at such a young age. But tests showed that the smallpox virus was no longer dangerous. A geochemist and the woman's teeth found that she had lived in the northeastern U.S. for a long time. Marvin Nash, on the other hand, wanted to know more about how the woman died. Marvin Nash said that only 33 people meet her requirements, and one of them fits the bill better than the others. This was Martha Peterson's, an African-American woman. In 1850, she would have been 26 years old, and it's likely that she died around 1851. She lived in the house of William Raymond, who worked with Fisk and Company to make iron coffins. Raymond Marvin Nash told the story of how he learned who she was. Marvin Nash said that he also thinks Martha Peterson worked as a servant for William Raymond. Nash was still interested in what the iron coffin lady looked like after he found out who she was. So the archaeologists brought in another expert. Joe Mullins is an expert in forensic imaging. He has worked with the FBI on many cases involving crimes and missing children. Mullins is very good at making pictures of people that show how they may have changed as they got older. Mullins used a CT scan as a guide and worked on Peterson's right side of the face because the damage on the left side was worse. He told the New York Post that the shape of the nasal aperture shows where the eyes are, how wide the nose is, and how thick the lips are. Experts said that the results of his work are so good that they are almost miraculous. It's amazing to see the face of a woman who died about 170 years ago and whose body was left alone in a vacant lot for all that time. Martha Peterson's funeral was held by the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and her body was laid to rest at the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Queens. People in the area have started a movement to stop the empty lot in Elmhurst from being built on. They want to keep it as a landmark to show how important it is to the history of freed slaves in New York State. That's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe Unexplained History for more videos like this. Don't forget to share and press the bell icon for more regular updates. Thanks for watching.